Hello and welcome to Tabletop 24 and welcome to this unboxing. Today we have the Dune Imperium Uprising, which is a second version of Dune Imperium that sort of replaces itself but adds a little bit more, and you can still play some expansions with it. And that sounds really complex, but hopefully it'll be a bit more clear once we get into this. So this is what I would say is technically the fourth expansion to Dune Imperium. But as I said, it's a standalone base game. And the reason for that is it replaces a lot of the components from the original game. Now, whether that's because it's going to be a direct improvement on the base game, does things slightly differently, we get to find out because I've not seen it completely yet, but we do know that it's going to be a little bit different. Here's some of the other expansions on the master material. We've got this full-on rulebook, which is going to look very familiar to anybody that's seen the original Dune Imperium rulebook. I must admit, I'm not a big fan of this size of books, so it just is what it is when we get to that. Then we've got our space guide, which I thought was really handy in the original. Again, does it need to be that size? Our two-player variant with the solo deck. One for the six-player games, so you're going to be able to play team versions. So there's a bit of a rulebook explanation for that. And then finally, we're going to get onto our punch board. So we've got our Emperor track, our Fremen track. We've got our punch boards. So we've got some of our espionage and places that are going to go over the top of the board. So maybe we've got some variability in there. Some more of those. Our control tokens, our alliance tokens. And then we get to the board. Now, this is going to look incredibly familiar to anybody that has played Dune Imperium. And that's because it's very similar. Everything's laid out in a very similar way. You've still got the same factions that you're going to have alliances with, but the spaces themselves are going to be different and they're going to be giving you different things to do. We get into the body of some of the components. So I'm not going to go into everything because a lot of it is going to be very familiar. So we've got our discs that look like they're now replaced with cylinders. Our cubes, which I think are going to be for a specific track. Our spice, which again, same. Water, same. Agents, which are going to be, again, the same. These we'll come back to. We have got our cylinder discs here, so those cylinders are going to be somewhat slightly different. We've got extra colour cubes. We've got colour cubes for our forces on the ground. We've got Solari, some extra baggies, and we'll start getting into the cards soon. So here we have got the sandworms. You can get the miniatures, which will go with the deluxe expansion, and you've got the normal wooden pieces, which could go with the regular version. So it depends on where you've gone. I like the fact that they've included the miniatures and not had to make it so that you have to go and buy another expansion. Saves on shipping, all of that sort of stuff. And probably for me, I don't care if they've added a couple of quid to the price for that. But I can appreciate how some others wouldn't. Then we have our faction leaders. So these are going to be, again, you recognise some of the artwork is familiar to the Dune films, the current Dune films, but is done with a sort of an artistic license style. It's very much based on the actors and actresses that play those characters in the films. Okay, so we've got them there. And again, they're using the sort of difficulty system of the pips to denote who is more complex to play. But I believe that's not necessarily the case when you play them. I think they've just got a little bit more going on. And then we're going to get into the body of our cards. I'm not going to go through everything in here because, well, this video would be far too long if I did. But I'm just going to run through some of it so you can see sort of what the sort of style of everything is and what sort of things you may see coming through. Again, this is fairly generic as to sort of the layouts of the cards. So if you have played Dune Imperium, you're going to know what this looks like. If you've not played Dune Imperium, a little bit of a brief. These icons down here are going to match parts on the board. That's where you're going to be placing your agents. And then at the end of the turn, you're going to have some cards left over that you're then going to be able to use to get you a benefit on the board or in combat or anything like that. So they're going to cost you a certain amount of points skill points to do it. Now we've got our player decks, which are all very generic. Again, I think they're exactly the same as what is in the base game. So we've got those there. Got another deck. We'll continue with our player starter decks, and then we've got some of the supply cards, Spice Must Flow cards. And we've got some specific cards that I think will come into play. So, and slightly different starter decks maybe. Then we've got our solo cards. These will after playing the Dune Imperium's solo AI, which is a deck similar to this, it plays quite well and gives you enough to think about as you go through it. So, and we've got some alliances, I think, so rivals. So that's gonna be, I think, a new mechanic in there. Put those on. And finally, we've got a small deck of cards, which are going to be, or a deck of small cards, which are going to be our combat cards and our intrigue cards. And these are going to be a very strong focus in the game. I think you need to be aware of them. You need to be knowing what's going on with them, because they can really swing your game as you go. So these are intrigue cards. They can be played at various points throughout the game, and they're going to be able to give you some swinging sort of benefit. And you're not going to, you might end up with a lot of these, you might end up with a few, depends on your play style. Some of them will be used in combat to sort of surprise people. Some of them are used at the end of the game, again, to surprise people. And then we have got our conflict cards. So we're going to have the specific conflicts that go on in the game, and we're going to be able to win the conflict and get benefits, or even place in the combat and get some benefits. And then we've got some objectives, which are new. So we're looking forward to trying them out. And then we've got some different intrigue cards. Okay, so like I say, there's a lot going on in this box. Dune Imperium itself is a good sort of deck builder work placement, this new hybrid that sort of came out a few years back. So it's definitely worth checking it out. My problem is I'm now going to have to try and fit it in my deluxe box, which is going to be a problem, I think, because I don't think I've got enough space for an additional map. But therein is our unboxing for Dune Imperium Uprising. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the videos on the channel, give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.